Well, welcome to the podcast, Dr. Lisa Lovelace. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, glad to finally have you. I know we started planning this, it was like months ago, maybe, and both busy, obviously. You've got a busy practice, and we're going to hear a little bit more about what you do. And I just recently moved, and so we kept moving and changing and trying to find the time. But I'm super excited to finally sit down and chat with you.
Me too. It worked out. We got it.
Yeah, we're here.
Perseverance.
It's Friday, so I'm excited, feeling good. So, well, let's get into first of all who you are and what you do. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your story.
Yeah. Well, I am a licensed clinical psychologist, and I originally got licensed in New York. I had my internship there, and then I did a 2-year fellowship, and then worked at a program at St. Luke's Roosevelt Hospital with teens and substance use. So it's like I was training and supervising and the whole thing. And I moved back after that program ended to my hometown here in Minneapolis. And that's where I grew up, and I got licensed here. And obviously, if I'm going to see patients here, and I tried to figure out how I can still see people in New York
Mm-hmm.
because my license came due. And I'm like, well, what would I pay for a license in a different state for? But I worked so hard for it, so I really wanted to keep it.
Yeah.
And I decided to just start trying to see patients. I created a little website called Dr. Lisa eTherapy. And I was seeing patients by Skype and calling them, and it was there nothing like there is today with help about, starting online therapy practices and all the different rules and laws and all the apps that are there today.
Yeah.
So I was just winging it, and over the years, just enjoying what I was doing as a side hustle. And then I had a colleague who still I work with today with Synergy. She came to me and said, I want to do what you're doing. Can you just teach me? I don't want to do this full time. I don't want an office. And I'm like, well, let me just work with you. And I just totally rebranded, rehashed everything, came up with a name, a logo, a website, and Synergy eTherapy was born like in the winter of 2016. And
Wow.
since then, it has just been fun and busy and, evolved and changed over time. And now I'm helping other people create online group practices. So I'm still working in my own and helping other people too.
That's awesome. I love hearing people's stories. It gets me so excited, and it brings up so many questions for me. And I
Shoot.
want to just
Yeah.
dig in a little bit on that. So just to clarify, so Synergy eTherapy, that's your online group practice that you run right now, right?
It is. That is my online therapy group practice. And, we currently, as of today, have 12 providers, 15 states,
Wow.
and some medication partnerships with some people that provide medication.
Wow.
So, and we have other partners that we have, some funnels with clients and different things. So it is evolved and ebbed and flowed throughout the years and reformed and rehashed and, learning a lot along the way.
Yeah, well, that's
Mm-hmm.
awesome. And obviously we're in this brave new world thanks to COVID-19, and
I
really it
know.
seems like every person that I consult with, every new business that comes to me, to talk about a website and marketing, everyone's focused on online therapy. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's amazing for you, and obviously I would think it would be a major blessing that you already had your practice completely online before all this stuff hit. Was that sort of a sense of gratitude with that?
It was like the only thing about COVID
Right.
that, if I be honest, is like this is just horrible all around. But
Right.
when it came to telehealth, yeah, I mean, we were the newbie, the underdog. Telehealth was this weird, strange thing that still people weren't quite,
Yeah.
thinking was as the same or as, helpful or, what is going on here with this whole online thing. And yeah, we didn't have to change a thing. We didn't have to
Yeah.
do anything. We just
Yeah.
actually get a lot more people calling from different states that we're not licensed in yet
Mm.
for counseling. But we're certainly grateful that we didn't have to scramble and that we already had our workflows and everything in place.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. Well, also on, just to go a little bit deeper on your story and starting this back in 2016, what were some of the challenges that you had in thinking about how do I set up a group practice that's completely online?
Yeah, I mean, oh my gosh, where do I begin? I mean, looking looking back, there were so many. It's great because I was kind of naive about it, where I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna do this group practice thing and have a couple of my colleagues come on board. And Andrea Bassett and Nicole Smith, who are still with me today, were like, hey, do you guys want to try out this new thing I'm gonna do? And they were like, sure, sounds great. And I had the I don't know. I guess it was just kind of that naivete of like, well, what can go wrong? I had no models to look at.
Yeah.
I had no mentors to help me. So I think that that helped. Was I didn't feel like I had to compete looking at some other people's websites of like how am I going to look like that? Or how am I going to build a practice like that?
Yeah.
So I think just the naivete of it. And then that was helpful, but it's not easy to think about, is this a W-2? Is this an independent clinician? If it's an independent clinician, I still want it to be a group practice with little master and commander of everything. How do I
Hmm.
understand that? What do I have control over? What do I not? What apps to use? Back then, there's not like the apps now. If I started today, I'd have probably a much different flow. And I'm just
Yeah.
too lazy to change it because I just can't imagine changing anything right now. But I think there's so many different apps right now and different medical records and everything that in integrated programs with video. And so I think that now it's just trying to understand, what do I choose from? It's
Yeah.
almost easier when there was nothing, at least back then, even 3 years ago, 4 years ago, it really felt like nothing compared to
Yeah.
what it is now. So I think you can get lost in that paralysis by analysis kind of feeling of there's
Yeah.
so much, and people just really need help figuring out, where do I begin? How do I think about this and not put the cart before the horse? Because, thinking you're going to make all this passive income, at least not in the first year, likely not in the second year, you're really investing
Yeah.
time and money back into the group. And so I think a
Hmm.
lot of people think like, oh, I'm just going to make some extra money off of my independent clinicians. And so really understanding like this takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of effort. You have to have a financial stake in the game. And then like all the workflows of what does this look like? Because without a workflow, you can't make a contract if it's an IC, right? So understanding the financial piece in the back end is really hard to kind of figure out, okay, how does this now go where I explain it to somebody so they know what they're buying into?
Right. Yeah. Well, take us a little bit deeper into that. Like, I'd love to, I really want to get to like marketing, some of the marketing stuff behind an online group therapy practice, but I'm sure there's a lot of people who are probably listening, thinking about maybe going into this model, or, they've moved to fully online, but then, that model still exists to bring on some other independent contractors, other clinicians, that sort of thing. My wife is in that place right now. Before COVID hit, she was about to take someone new on in her office and
Oh,
stuff, and so
yeah.
she's still working through that. But that model obviously still exists. But like, how do we do this? How do we do this
Virtually.
online? Yeah,
Mm.
virtually. So, what are some of the things people need
Yeah.
to think through?
Well, I think they need to think through, number one, if they were an in-person practice and then they are now online because they had to, because that's where we're at, do they want to go back just to in person? Do they want to have a hybrid where maybe some people are in person and some people are online, or people have a choice or they can do both? Or are they just going to have people just be online where it's an online
Hmm.
office? And I think there's a lot of choice there. You have to decide as a practice owner what you want it to look like. And then most people have a question of like, how do I hire somebody? How do I know? So, is it going to be only my state? So am I only hiring in Minnesota? Or am I going to start hiring people that are in different states? Is it going to be private pay? Is it going to be insurance? There's so many things I've learned when you're a multi-state practice that gets very confusing because insurance doesn't understand, like, my provider Casey is over in South Carolina, so they have her address and MPI, but my business is over here in Minnesota, and it's like, who who's who.
Mhm.
So I think it can get very confusing, and then different things like provider tax, and every state has their own issues, right?
Yeah.
So I think that there's just a lot that can come up that you just don't maybe know what to do. So you don't know what you don't know until you know it. So it's like getting support, getting
Yeah.
feedback from your colleagues that have done it, and really understanding what you want this to look like, and know that it can evolve, it can change and grow over time as you get more comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm kind of hearing you need to have a good accountant. So,
And a lawyer.
and a lawyer,
I have a
yes.
very good team: accountant, lawyer, privacy people, web guy, SEO company. Like, I have way too many people because I'm not an expert in all this. I can't do it all.
Yeah. Yeah. But as you said, you learn as you go. And I mean, that's true of any business. It's true of my business. You don't know what you don't know when you start, but you learn and you grow with it, which is kind of the fun part of doing
That
all this
is,
stuff. And,
yeah,
every every month or every day is a new challenge. So that's cool.
it is. And I think people going into a new business adventure, so like if you have your own private practice, expanding is very different. You now have your practice, and you have your people, and you have workflows, and things have to change, and you're more available. You have to be more readily there. And so
Hmm.
it's actually more time and more work,
Yeah.
than having
Yeah.
just like, oh, I'm going to have some passive income. It's no, it's you're really working for it, and it
Yeah.
takes a lot of time. And so I think people really, need to understand, going back to the other question of like, how do you think about it, is just what do you want at that time? And then when you get people on board, or how do you hire, and how do you learn if they're a good fit? And you're going to learn that over time as you evolve and grow. Like,
Yeah.
some of it's just trial and error. Like, I
Yeah.
can tell you everything I've done, but you still have to experience it for yourself.
Yeah. Absolutely. I'm super curious to hear a little bit more about your team. So I mean, you talked about having a good fit and that sort of thing, which is a way somebody would speak when you have a team in person, and you've got this
Uh-huh.
sort of company culture going on and that sort of thing. So I'm super
Mhm.
curious to hear a little bit more about how you interact with your team. Is there rapport? Do you guys meet virtually, like, here and
Yeah.
there regularly, stuff like that?
Yeah, I would say for me, I take a lot of time if I didn't know somebody, and I vet them out quite thoroughly. I have phone calls, I check references, I have video calls. I don't take that lightly.
Yeah.
I make sure that what I'm offering is going to fit for them. And when I hear that it's not a good fit, I don't want them on. I don't want to waste my time or theirs. And I might offer them, oh, you just need marketing help, go call this person, or you need website help, go call this person. But I think that I totally just lost my train of thought somehow. I don't know where it went. What was I just saying? This is Friday, and this is what happens. Like, I
Yeah.
am been, oh, my team,
Yeah, your
my
team.
team. I love my team. So we had a great consult today, actually, at like 10 in the morning Central Time, and I had like 6 of us on a Zoom call. We're all just talking about different things like patients and marketing, and like other things, just random things about ourselves and our lives. So
Yeah.
I become very close with each of them in their own way, because I'm texting with them, emailing with them, talking with them. I do become their coach, and that's how I work and operate. So there isn't a day that goes by that I don't have a text from one of the 12.
Hmm.
And so I'm very involved, and I love that because I get to know them personally, and things that they're struggling with, and things that are going great with their business or their family. So we have a fun time. We have a closed Facebook group, not to talk about clients, but like, hey, look at this website. Or like,
Hmm.
Dina Cuervo, one of my psychologists, was on a really great podcast talking about systemic racism and trauma in kids. And we could share that. And so I share their posts, that podcast. I share everything I created on my website. So there is a rapport
Yeah.
that I'm going to do all this work on your behalf. And so there has to be that foundation of trust,
Hmm.
of that grows over time. But I really start that way. So we see each other, talk to each other, probably more more so than one would think, given an
Yeah.
online setting, because not all of us have seen each other in person.
Yeah. That's cool. I love that. Sounds like you're doing a really great job to build that team and stay connected. Very cool.
Thank you. Thank you. And that's the part that I love the most, is actually helping them thrive and figuring out
Yeah.
kind of who they are in a private practice and where their stuck points are. And I can kind of fill the gaps, because why would they join a group practice? They could do this themselves.
Right.
Why my group practice versus somebody else's group practice, right?
Yeah. Very
So
cool.
we have to make that known, so that, that's part of marketing your practice too.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a question, but now it happened to me. It flew
Oh
right out of
no.
my head.
Fridays.
Oh,
Call it the Fridays.
I'm curious just to hear a little bit more, to that point. You said you love coaching and staying connected and all that stuff. What does your week look like as far as, running the business, being with clients yourself, stuff like that?
24/7.
All of it.
All of it. I also still work 2 days in a medical clinic that's now virtual, which is ironic. But I've worked in the medical clinic for as long as I can remember, since I moved back. And so Synergy eTherapy for me is kind of my side project. It's not my full existence for financial stability. And
Mm-hmm.
so there's a different passion that comes along with that for me. I don't have to do this. I don't necessarily feel like I'm going to cut any corners, whether it's with hiring or how it works or anything, because this is my passion, is to help community members get online therapy and have counseling very easily accessible, and then
Yeah.
also helping therapists do what I'm doing. So it's just, a really engaged constantly, because I have my 2-day a week clinic, and then I have my own patients. I have way too many. I have a hard time saying no, but I have to, because I don't have spots. So I have like 20 of my own private pay patients, and then I have all my clinicians. Random things. Can you add this to my bio page? Can we switch this? Can we change this to the back end of the website, to
Yeah.
SEO, to consults and everything? So, it does really, I feel like I work quite often with the little one at home too. I'm like working till 11 or 12 at night, which is not great, but we do sleep late. So, right now it's like we don't get up at 6 or 7 in the morning.
Oh, that's
So,
good.
it is pretty 24/7 for me, but I have a passion about it, that I love
Yeah.
doing it, and I love helping my clinicians so much. So it's
Yeah.
worth it for me.
Yeah. Well, that shines some light on why it took us so long to get onto this call. You're a very busy woman.
Everybody's busy. It's just,
Yeah.
my schedule is booked out probably about, 6 weeks, because I don't
Yeah.
have that many spots.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, cool. I would love to just shift gears a little bit. You mentioned some that you're helping other clinicians do this work and set up their online practices. And I'd love to shift gears into some of the marketing tips, things that have worked for you. And I'd like to kind of again go back to when you first started this online practice. And I'm just curious, what were some of the things that worked for your marketing back then? Because it seems like that was pretty revolutionary in online therapy. It's before COVID, it
Felt
was
that way. Yeah.
still getting some traction on that. So you were kind of in the Wild West, doing something new there.
It was. And, to some extent, I feel like that every day still. Back then, it wasn't that much different than what you would do just for any practice. It was just 3 of us here in Minnesota, is how I started. And I remember that first year, I probably had 30 presentations, meet and greets, webinars. I did so much face to face, even if it's not in person, but you could see me, I could see you.
Yeah.
Networking and marketing and supporting and offering presentations to schools and communities. That was a huge thing in 2017. I spent a lot of time networking, And that does something. You're having that connection so people know you and you gain more momentum as an expert in whether it's online counseling or whatever I was talking about at the time, anxiety in teens or whatever it is. That really, you can't let that go. I mean, even if you're marketing to a state, I still have to call people and talk to people. I do that less now, but that was something that we had to do. I went to rural counties and did a presentation there for county workers. I mean, I was I was out and about doing things because you had to establish yourself. So when people think, well, I'm just going to have a website and a Psychology Today profile, that might work for some, but I just think you need to go back to the roots of just being you, providing good help to people in the community. And then that is where people will kind of start to follow. And then I also, this wasn't really related to marketing, but it turned out to be a marketing thing. A friend of mine started a charity for suicide prevention and awareness. And that is only a couple years old, and that took off big time. And we were in local newspapers, on TV. I was on, like NBC here, and that's a really great thing. If you really have a passion for something and want to start a nonprofit, get out in the community. I mean, there's still that boots to the ground kind of feeling that you have to do. And then people obviously learned that Synergy eTherapy was a co-founder of Shout Out Loud, which is our charity. So, and then like silly things, like we were like, how, one of my colleagues, I think it was Andrea, I think at the time, I don't remember, we found these like not bumper stickers, but things you can put on your glass window of your car. And we got these from this place, and it's got our logo, has online counseling, and it's stuck to the back window of my car. It has our phone number and stuff. It's like little things like that. Everywhere we used to drive, we don't drive too much anymore, but like it's there. And now everywhere we go, a couple of us have that here in Minnesota. So being creative, and that now it's turned into a lot of like what you do, of like having a good website and having that be really optimized and functional, and understanding how to reach different cities and different states, and having landing pages and Google ads and Google My Business, and the list goes on and on and on. But without understanding who your business is, what your business is, and who your target market is, and how to speak that language, how do you make ads and do all that stuff. So you still have to go back, I think, with marketing to all the fundamentals. That's going to be what happens to drive your practice into, kind of the upward.
Yeah. Well, we don't have time to get all into how do you figure out what you're all about and all that sort of stuff. So I hate to just skip right over that, but I'm super excited to just hear a little bit more about, you just, mentioned that whole list of stuff we can do, but curious to hear about your website. Like what has worked for you with your website, with getting clients to the website or converting, just any tips you can give us about having a group practice online and what to do with your website.
Yeah, well, for me, it was having a good web developer, somebody that I've learned over time. I've worked with him. I was referred to him from a cousin, and his name's Gabe Valdez from Nerd Alert Solutions in California. Like, it's his business, it's not, and like we just worked together, and he created my little site a long time ago, the Dr. Lisa one. And then when I rebranded, he really worked with me to understand HIPAA and like, how does this work, and what can we put, and how do we have a workflow, and do therapists do their own intakes, or am I doing all of the intakes? And so we had to go through it to understand a good workflow. And that led to how the website is developed and how you need to have it scalable. So I can easily add a clinician myself now. I've become a very novice IT person that can deal with a WordPress backend, right? And so like I've learned so much, but having somebody that knows, because this is not my area. So having people that really know what to do based on your vision or the workflow is imperative for me. And like I've learned about how to have a good website, and I'm sure there's still room for improvement, but I mean, really understanding how people search. So like
Mm-hmm.
when people are out there, they're not looking necessarily for synergy eTherapy. They might, but it's going to be like an anxiety therapist near me or whatever. And like, how does our page pull up? So, we have to have good content on our site and have good blogs and have good service pages and certain
Mm-hmm.
number of words and, have good SEO and all that stuff. So, I mean, I've learned a lot about that from the people that I work with, that helped me to do that. But my goodness, like you can't do it all. So
Yeah.
I think like my advice to people would be get people that know how to do it to work with you. You got to be able to hire out. Like, this isn't my time or area. You got to be able to kind of spend a little money to hopefully get some money.
Yeah.
Um, and just know that you're going to revise it. You're going to always be revising as things change, and that's okay. Just don't
Mm-hmm.
get stuck. Just start
Yeah.
doing something.
That's good advice. That's my favorite thing about websites. You can always change it,
Yeah,
make some
it's
changes, click
okay.
save. Yeah.
Yeah.
And your site is I think I was taking a look at it, prior to this chat here, and I think it's organized like really nicely, and obviously it's a great example of what to do for building, an
Thank you.
online therapy practice. And love what you did with the different locations, because I'm looking at your website right now. I got it in front of me. So you've got, I don't know how many states, I didn't count it up, but California, Colorado, Florida, and I noticed you've built a landing page for each of those locations. And it's not just like 100 words on each. These are nice landing pages. I'm sure that these were probably, built for SEO purposes, and I just encourage anyone listening, we'll put it in the show notes for this episode, check out Lisa's website for just ideas on like what to do for the content of your website, especially if you're trying to reach multiple states or an entire state, for online therapy, because that question comes up a lot, especially since COVID. It's, I was targeting Atlanta counseling with my website. Now, how do I target Georgia
And
online
Georgia,
counseling?
yeah. And what are people searching for? So yeah, I think you need to invest in people that know what they're doing, and that's just part of owning a business, and or learn about it on your own. So you don't have to invest in other people if you don't want to, but learn how to do it. There's a lot of self-help tools, there's a lot of YouTube videos. A lot of people have like their own study programs where it's like, do it for you or do it yourself kinds of things. So you
Yeah.
can learn if you have the time and are interested in it, because it's nice to know how it all works and goes together.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, as we wrap up here, are there any final words of advice you want to give to folks who are interested in building their own online group therapy practice?
Yeah, well, just due to the demand, I think once COVID hit, especially, I started a Facebook group that's free. Anybody can join. It's called How to Build an Online Therapy Group Practice. And I think I did start this before COVID. I don't remember. I must have, but it was right around that time. And now we're up to like 450 members of therapists that are either a solo practitioner that wants to expand to a group, or a group practice owner that was maybe in person and now they had to make that shift to being online. And now they're like, I kind of like it. How do I do this? How do I
Yeah,
expand? So I
that's
have a
great.
mastermind coming in July. I've done so many one-on-one consultations with practice owners too, formally, and just really honed in on a lot of these things and workflow, and just giving them food for thought, specifics, and then telling them where to go. Because I can't, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not an accountant. So there's a lot of things I don't know. But it's just really helping people to thrive in whatever aspect of their online practice that they want in a group format. So that is something that I'm excited about, and still taking always applicants, people who want to join our group. We always want to branch out and add to certain states given our partnerships and workflow overload, stuff like that. So feel free to apply if you don't want your own practice. You can join ours.
That's awesome. I love it. So synergy, as you said, is kind of like a side project hustle, and then you've got even a side hustle to that with this mastermind going
A
on.
side hustle. Yeah, I really didn't. It's funny because when I look at the flow of it, like I didn't think of an online group practice. I didn't think of creating a side hustle of how to do an online group practice.
Right.
These things kind of fell in my lap, so to speak, and I'm like, okay, let's try it out. And so I
Yeah.
think there's a difference there between feeling like I have to create something versus like, oh, this is just coming to me. Let me just try it out. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's very interesting because, time is valuable these days and so
Yeah.
is sleep. So,
Amen to that.
right, especially with little ones, as you know. So,
Yes.
yeah, I
Yes.
think for people just to know, like, just find good people to be in your corner, get support, do consults, learn what you want to, and just hire out for what you don't. And you're going to be needed. So please, please, please just continue to be a great therapist, whether you have a group practice online or in person, and help more clinicians to be able to serve your community, especially after what's going on in the world now. It's just
Yeah.
we're not fighting for clients, we just need more people to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Lisa, for your time. Really appreciate it. This was a fun conversation and love what you do and find it very
Thank you.
interesting. And, we'll have all the links to the Facebook group and to the Synergy website as well. This will be episode number 54. So people can get that at privatepracticeelevation.com/54, and they can see all those links. So thanks again.
Thank you.